I got home early that day, and the house felt wrong before I even touched the door. Have you ever stepped into your own hallway and felt like the walls were holding their breath, like they knew a secret you didn't? 3 steps later, I heard the laughter, and I knew something was very, very off. It wasn't my son's laugh, not the bell-bright sound that usually drifts down from his room and makes me forget the market, the deadlines, the noise. This was harsher, like gravel, like someone enjoying a joke no decent person would tell. I had cut a meeting short, loosened my tie, decided to take the side garden path instead of the elevator, just to breathe in the winter air and rinse the day off my skin. The fountain was bubbling like always, rose bushes asleep, sky turning that gold-blue color you only get in February. Normal things, ordinary things. And then I rounded the pavilion and saw a scene that still wakes me up at night. My son Santiago, 5 years old, tiny shoulders shaking, drenched in water, sitting in his wheelchair in the middle of the grass. And our nanny Dolores holding the garden hose like a weapon, laughing. She was sweeping the jet back and forth like she was cleaning a driveway. "Do you like the bath, rich kid?" she said, and she aimed it straight at his face. His sweater clung to his chest, his lips were turning that bluish gray you learn to recognize when your child has asthma. The chair's electronics were beeping in distress, and for 1 second everything in me went silent, like the world pulls back right before it snaps. I don't remember moving, but I remember my voice, calm, low, not even a shout. "Enough." She jumped and dropped the hose water arcing over the lawn, and then the excuses started spilling out of her like she'd rehearsed them. He was difficult, he refused his medicine. She needed to teach him. It was only water, she didn't mean harm. I didn't hear half of it. I took off my jacket, wrapped it around Santiago's shaking body, brushed wet hair off his forehead, with the part of my hand that still knew how to be tender, and I said the only thing that mattered, "Papa's here." He was shivering so hard, the chair rattled. "Cold," he whispered. I could feel the anger rise like heat under my ribs, but there's a line between fury and action, and a father has to stand on the right side of it. You know what I mean? Inside the house, everything looked warm. The golden lights, the rugs, the art we picked out together. And it all felt wrong anyway. I brought him to his bathroom, ran water, tested the temperature on my wrist, like the nurses taught us years ago, added the green apple bubbles he loves, because ritual is medicine too, and told him the truth in the gentlest words I could find. "You did nothing wrong." He nodded, still small, still shaking, and then he said it. "She told me it was my fault." "If it were you, what would you have done?" I called our pediatrician, Dr. Ramirez, with the phone wedged on my shoulder while I knelt by the tub, and he said he could come right away. I called my lawyer and told him I wanted everything on Dolores. References, history, anything that smelled off. And then I called my wife, Sophia, in Paris, who answered on the second ring. You know that moment your voice tries to sound steady and then falls apart anyway? That was me. She said she was coming home, no debate. "He's our baby," she said, and that sentence split me open and stitched me up in the same breath. Yeah, that happened. Dr. Ramirez examined Santiago that night. Temperature normal, lungs clear, no hypothermia, no full-blown attack, thank God. He still recommended a child psychologist because trauma is sneaky and children carry it in places you can't see, and I agreed before he finished the sentence. After that, I did what dads do on a bad night. I made it small and safe. We ordered pizza, burned the popcorn a little, watched his favorite movie, and he fell asleep, curved against me with his stuffed astronaut tucked under his chin while I sat there watching the ceiling and making promises to it. Never again, never again, never again. Morning came gray, the kind of light that makes the city look like a photo, And I made star-shaped pancakes because you cling to the rituals that tell your kid the world still has edges. He rolled down in his chair wearing his school uniform, serious and determined, said his class was starting a solar system project, and he had ideas about black holes. "Do I have to go to school?" he asked. "Do you want to?" I asked back. He looked at the pancakes like they were a map. "I think so," and then the question. I wish to God he never learned to ask. "Does the bad lady know where my school is?" I covered his hand with mine and promised him he was safe. Then I went to work making sure that promise was real. At the school, the principal ushered us in with that soft gravity only good educators have. I told her everything with the parts I wanted to swallow, said out loud anyway, because silence grows mold. She went pale, nodded once, and said she'd alert the whole staff and security team, asked about therapy, told me Santiago was one of their most beloved students. It sounded sincere because it was. I left him there watching him disappear into a hallway of backpacks and bulletin boards, and I drove to the office because adults keep moving even when their insides are stuck. My assistant pulled me aside. "She came here," she said, "Dolores, early desperate, trying to talk her way past the guard saying she needed to see me, that she had information about my family." That phrase landed like a stone in my stomach. My family. What could she possibly know? What did she think she had? I pushed through a few meetings, signed a few papers with a hand that didn't feel like mine, called the school twice. Once too many, I know, but I did it anyway. And they told me he was fine, focused, even excited. At 4, I went to pick him up. He rolled out of the science room, grinning, explaining the event horizon, like it was a friend he'd just met. We drove home in that warm buzz of a good school day, talking about gravity and vacuum cleaners in space, and I turned onto our street, and every hair on my arm stood up for no obvious reason. The gardener wasn't there. Wednesday is always his day. The living room curtains were closed. Maria Elena, our housekeeper, never closes them in daylight. An unfamiliar car sat half a block down, idling. Tiny details that should have been nothing, details you can explain away until you can't. Instinct is a muscle you either learn to trust or learn to ignore. I parked and looked my son in the eyes and said, "Stay in the car, lock the doors. If anything feels wrong, hit this button." The panic button connects directly to security. He nodded, brave in the way kids are brave, because they trust you. Inside silence. Not the easy kind, the thick kind, like the house swallowed its own breath. I called for Maria Elena. Nothing. I moved up the stairs like the air was heavier. There reached the hallway to my son's room and heard it. Drawers, sliding papers, moving, the sound of someone going through a life. I stepped in and found Dolores kneeling on the floor in front of Santiago's desk, papers everywhere. Every drawer open, the air smelling like cold anger. She had his small metal keepsake box in her hand, the one where he keeps birthday cards, little treasures, a photo of us at the aquarium, and because sometimes you do a temporary thing and forget to undo it, his original birth certificate. "What are you doing in my house?" I asked, and my voice dropped the temperature in that room by 10 degrees. She jerked like a puppet and dropped the box contents, spreading across the rug, like a spill you can't mop. Then she straightened, and I saw her without the mask for the first time. "I came to get what belongs to me," she said. "What you owe me." I told her the only thing I owed her now was a police report, and that's when she smiled the way snakes smile in stories. "Are you sure?" she said, "because I think there are things about your perfect son you don't know." Pattern interrupt. Wait. Breathe. "What are you talking about?" I asked carefully, because sometimes the wrong question creates the answer you least want. She bent, picked up the birth certificate like a sword, and said, "Your son is not yours, and I have proof. Have you ever felt the floor tilt under your feet, while your body still looks like it's standing still, my mind? Traitor, that it has started pulling files. The years we tried for a baby and failed and tried again. The silent months, the doctors, the shame couples never talk about in public. The day we finally got lucky, the way everyone says my son is his mother's mirror. And for one dizzy moment, I let fear get a foot in the door. She kept going, piling on. Claimed she'd seen letters in my wife's office, emails from a Swiss clinic, receipts, proof, said she'd taken photos when we weren't looking. Said I was raising a stranger's child. She said it like she thought she was saving me. That's when I heard the suitcase wheels downstairs and my wife's voice calling my name. Sophia had taken the earliest flight and walked right into our worst room at the worst moment. She froze when she saw the papers on the floor and Dolores and me and the certificate in that woman's hand. For one breath, everything almost broke. I could see the terror in Sophia's eyes, and behind it the hurt of being accused of something so enormous. And then I heard the low hum from the hallway, the sound my son's chair makes when it moves slow, and his voice small and earnest, "Dad. Mom, can I come in? I want to show Mom my project." The most fragile second of our family life rolled toward us, and I made a choice I hope every father would make. I walked straight to the doorway, knelt in front of my boy, held his hands in mine, and said loud enough for every person in that room to hear, "Listen to me carefully, champ. No matter what anyone says, you are my son. You've been my son since before I met you. You're my son at 3 a.m. when you're scared. You're my son when you're laughing so hard. You hiccup, you're my son when you're mad and slam your door, and you're my son right now. Nothing changes that. Nothing." He looked into me like he was looking for a crack, and I didn't give him one. I stood up, took the paper out of Dolores's hand, and felt the weight of what it was. Paper. Not truth, not love, not a life. "You don't know what a father is," I told her. "A father is the man who learns to install rails in a bathroom so his kid can bathe with dignity, who cries in private so his child won't think the world is something he can't handle, who memorizes the color of danger in a child's cheeks and moves before the attack comes. That's a father. I don't need a lab to tell me what I already know." For a second, she faded. Just a flicker. And then a voice came from behind her, steady and tired of being quiet. "That's enough." Maria Elena stepped in with her phone in her hand. "I've been recording from the hallway," she said, eyes on Dolores. "Your break-in, your threats, your confession. The police are on their way. And then to us with the kind of certainty that takes years to build. She's lying. There are no clinic letters. I clean that office every week. I would have seen them. She's been taking photos of random papers for months trying to twist something into a weapon. There is nothing like what she says." Sophia found her voice, quiet, shaking iron under velvet. "I would never do that to you," she said. "Yes, it took us time. Yes, we talked about options in the darkest months. But we did not use them. We got lucky. He is ours." I looked at her face, the woman who would walk barefoot through fire for our boy, and saw one thing, only the truth we built a home on. Sirens rose outside, closer, quick. When the officers stepped in, Dolores tried to throw out one more threat. "You don't know who you're dealing with." And I said what we all knew by then, we do. A woman who hurt a child and tried to burn down a family with a lie. They took her away. The house exhaled. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. After the police left, the quiet in the room was different. Like the air after a storm, heavy but clean. Santiago looked from me to Sophia and asked in that small, careful voice, "Is the bad stuff over?" I said yes. Then he said the sentence I still feel in my bones. When she said I wasn't your son, I got scared. I thought maybe you wouldn't love me the same. I dropped to my knees again, because some conversations deserve eye level. You are my son, I am your dad, and there is no version of our life where that changes. Do you understand? He nodded slow at first, and then big smiled that full-body smile kids do, and the whole room warmed up a degree. We stayed together that night in his room with the space murals and the bed shaped like a small ship. Ice cream straight from the container. 2 movies in a row, Sophia's head on my shoulder, Santiago's hand gripping my sleeve like an anchor. The next week was doctors and a gentle therapist who used toys to give names to big feelings, security upgrades at home, a full review of our screening process meetings with the school, about protocols, affidavits, with my signature steady and dark. But the real work was smaller. Building a magnet spaceship on the rug, while he told me little bits of his day, not interrupting, letting him set the pace, catching myself before I checked an email, when he said, "Look at this, keeping my promise out loud and in practice every day." People have asked me since, quietly, like they're afraid to hurt me, "Did you believe her even for a second?" Here's the truth. For one breath, maybe two, fear got a toe in the door. Not because I didn't know my boy, not because I doubted my wife, but because infertility carves tunnels you think you've filled in, and a liar knows where to dig. Fear doesn't need facts, it needs only a plausible angle and a tired heart. She tried it. We shut the door. Here's the twist that surprised me even while I lived it. Her lie didn't crack us, it welded us. My son watched me choose him out loud in front of the person who hurt him, without a single pause. He watched his mother cross an ocean, because nothing else mattered. He watched a woman who cleans our home become a shield with a phone and a backbone. He saw police step into a house and mark a line. No farther. And he saw a father admit he was afraid and stand anyway. If it were you, what would you have done? And I know some of you are going to say, easy for you to talk. You've got money, you've got staff, you've got lawyers. You're not wrong. Money buys fences and cameras and quick responses. But it doesn't buy instinct. It doesn't buy the discipline to listen when your kid is talking. It doesn't buy the courage to kneel in a doorway and declare your love like a contract you're ready to sign again right now. That part belongs to anyone. Do you think that's fair? I also hear the other side. She talked about being poor, about families like yours. I grew up counting tips. I know the constant math of rent and groceries and gas. Systemic unfairness is real, and cruelty is still a choice. Pain can make you kinder or meaner. She chose mean. That's on her, not on every person fighting hard to keep their lights on. So here's where I leave it with you. Not tied up with a ribbon, not perfect, but true. Family is blood sometimes, and sometimes it's a daily oath you make with your actions. Fatherhood is DNA sometimes, and sometimes it's the man on the floor at midnight, holding a feverish child and whispering, "It's going to be okay," while the soup cools on the counter. Children deserve to be safe, and we should argue about how to guarantee that without turning every home into a fortress. Caregiver registries, surprise audits, training standards. Where's the line between safety and surveillance, between trust and proof? Tell me where you land, because this is where good people disagree in good faith. If this hits something in you, if you grew up loved by someone who didn't share your last name, if you have a complicated story about how your family formed, if a lie tried to break you and failed, I want to hear it. If you think I handled this wrong, say why. If you would have done something different, tell me what and teach me. Drop your take in the comments. Argue with me, agree with me, add a piece I missed. Share this with someone who needs to hear that love is a verb and protection is a practice. And if you want more stories told the way they actually unfold, messy, human, true, hit subscribe and stick around. I came home early and almost lost the plot. And somehow in the middle of the worst day, I found the line I won't let anyone cross. Now it's your turn. What's your line and how do you keep it?